All right. We're here.
DJ Lagway is going to be amazing for the Florida Gators.
Man,
I'm sorry, I was having my mindful meditation.
Hey, look, we got to all be channeling our positive thoughts to our teams. We're, I thought I sent Frank Duffy the link last night.
He's in.
Okay, no, Dave Tompkins is in. Frank was just saying.
So is Frank. Frank just came on right now.
Okay, yeah, because
I see him over there in these black and white over in my green room.
Well, Frank is broadcasting to us live from Cabo San Lucas. That's I think that's south of Tampa.
I really don't need to know anything about Cabo San Lucas and how he's in Mexico right now. I don't need to hear it.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
I really don't need to hear it.
Yeah,
I had to see what's his name yesterday from the beach.
Yeah, John Hartwell.
Some of us are working stiffs, all right?
Yeah, I got my name right here on my shirt, boys. I work for a living. Don't call me sir. All right, Dave Tompkins from the Low Country in Beaufort, South Carolina joins us. Doug Dean from the Magic City, Birmingham, and Frank Duffy in Cabo San Lucas. We are going to be talking a lot. SEC. Smash that button. Smash the YouTube button in the bottom right-hand corner. And also allow notifications on your phone. You can hear when every show comes out. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. SECU. We'll start these podcasts. We got a cool one coming out about Texas. What do you know
about
the University of Texas? That's right. Ken Capps will be on with us. And he is putting up his map. I feel like the weatherman here. You can see that Barnwood Brenda made for me down in Batesville, Mississippi. Bless you. He's putting it up. He got one made for him. And he's putting it up in the Hook'em hut in his house down in Dallas, Texas. All right, let's go. We're ready. And
grab your pen and paper, Rob.
Get pen and paper handy.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, man, we got a credit. Frank Duffy looks like he's at the Motel 6 in Cabo San Lucas, and we'll leave the light on for you. Dave Tompkins, Beaufort, South Carolina. And let me just say this.
Housekeeping.
Hey, man, if you ever been to Oxford, Mississippi, you got to go to Bim Bam. This is a cool restaurant my friend's daughter owns down in Oxford, Mississippi. Bim Bam, Flim Fam, Ole Miss by damn. We got a Wagyu burger the other day. I got some Bim Bam sliders, got the wings. They got ice cold beer there. What more do you need besides being in Oxford, Mississippi or any of these college towns? Can't beat it. And if you want one of these SEC maps, like the one hand carved behind me out of Cyprus by Barnwood Brenda, they're $800. They can ship them to you anywhere in the country. Ken Capps just bought one to put them up in the Hook'em hut down in Austin. But, man, this show's about the SEC, and Doug Dean will be on about 10 after. He just texted us. Let me just start by saying this to Dave Tompkins. Sergeant, sir, may I ask you a question? Don't sir me, I work for a living, son. How many times did you hear that? All right, got to ask you this, Dave Tompkins. Start with you and then Frank. This SEC basketball race, to me, it's the closest, most intense. We still really don't know, other than Tennessee, who is off, who gets off for the first 2 days. It's a log jam at the end. Everybody's fighting for second place now, but it's also fighting for seeding, isn't it?
It's fighting for seeding. It's fighting for the 2-game bye. It's fighting for seeding in the big tournament. I think Alabama's working its way down to a 6 seed, while Auburn might be working its way up to a 3 seed. Tomorrow's just going to be fascinating. I mean, I'm going to be watching TV all day tomorrow. By the way, Rob, nice shirt. Kind of shades of Howard Sprague from the Andy Griffith Show.
Hey, you know where I got you wouldn't know. I'm doing some numbers right. And I see Michael Jordan, MJ, dialing in from, I think he's in Point Clear down there at the Mississippi Bankers Convention, and he'll be wearing a suit today, possibly before he goes and sees our good man Richard Gary down there in Foley. But I got this at Hewlett and Dunn yesterday. It's a Pendleton shirt, but I do feel my inner Howard Sprague coming out right now. So I'm still living at home with my mother. Howard was, 47? Howard be home before 10. Frank, let's talk some SEC basketball. Getting this group together and a little Bailey's Irish Cream here in the Bim Bam Cup this morning.
There you go. I wouldn't expect anything less from the Bim Bam.
Yep.
I think it's going to be moving Saturday. They always talk about on the PGA Tour, Saturdays are moving day. Well, this Saturday in the SEC is moving day. You're going to see who's going to get those buys, who's not going to get those buys. To Dave's point, if Alabama drops and doesn't get a buy, I mean, that's going to be a huge fall over the last couple of weeks. I think Auburn is, in my opinion, the stock to purchase on the way up. And, of course, Tennessee, the cream rose to the top. We thought there might be maybe a little shot with Alabama, playing them in Tuscaloosa. But, Tennessee clearly won the regular season. They can't, they got the two-game lead, so they're going to win the regular season. But it's going to be fun. Nashville is going to be just wide open. Really got about 8, maybe 9 teams that, if not a chance to win the SEC, have a chance to determine who does win the SEC. And that's as deep as it's been in my recollection, going back probably a decade.
Yeah,
well,
I agree with you.
I think what'll be fascinating, let's just assume that Tennessee beats Kentucky tomorrow, and whoever wins the Carolina-Duke game ends up winning the ACC tournament, and Tennessee does not win the SEC tournament. I still think Tennessee deserves the 1 seed in March Madness, but we'll see. I hope that plays out, just because I want to see, for once and for all, non-ACC bias, and the road to the Final Four for Carolina or Duke is through Charlotte and Greensboro or whatever. I'm really curious about that. I hope that scenario plays out, so we get to put the spotlight on the selection committee.
Well, if you think about Tennessee's schedule, Frank, along the lines of what Dave is talking about, their last 3 games at home last Wednesday against number 11 Auburn, that was a tough game. On the road at the Coleman Hangar in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, that was a hell of a win. And then on the road at South Carolina, nobody in the country is running a gauntlet like they are right now. And I was talking to Daryl Benton from Benton's Smoky Mountain Hams and Cured Bacon. Oh my God, y'all got to order this stuff. I'm addicted to it. Yesterday, he's a big Vol fan. And I was like, you think about it. Now you play Kentucky tomorrow. I mean, has anybody, what's different, Frank? Tennessee's got a lot of guys that have played together for a while. That makes this a special kind of team.
Their season, this could be the Tennessee team that makes the run we've been expecting for the last several years. And look, I mean, you run a gauntlet of these final 4 games, and you win them, and you put yourself in a position to have the number 1 seed. Now, look, we're not. I'm not giving them the win against Kentucky just yet. Kentucky this time of year, March and Kentucky, go hand in hand. So I'm not giving them the win yet. But if they do, and number 1 seed, you got. I mean, when I fill out my brackets, I'm going to put them in the Final Four. I can tell you that.
Yep, and Fran said it on a show a couple weeks ago. Tennessee, like UConn, is one of those teams that can beat you multiple ways. Sure, Dalton Knecht is wonderful. I mean, player of the year, but they win games when he only scores like 8 or 9 points, and I think that's the real strength of this team. I know the Tennessee fans are skeptical because Rick Barnes seems to run into a wall at the Elite Eight every year, or whenever they make a run. But this could be a special year for Tennessee for sure.
They're definitely around in the football. There's no doubt.
Well, and I'm sitting here looking at what is happening in college basketball. The ACC, North Carolina and Duke are good. They're really good. I don't think, though, that we've got that we've got an ACC bias this year, really. But at the same time, Dave, when Coach K retired, I don't think he was very comfortable with that, all the focus being on him. By the way, did either of y'all watch the thing on ACC Network with Wes Durham,
but I really
Coach
want
K,
to.
and Roy Williams? Yeah, that's priceless. At the Carolina Coaches Convention, that was really cool. All right, Dave, give me Tennessee. If they win a game, if they beat Kentucky tomorrow and they win a game in the tournament in Nashville, they're a number 1 seed. Argue against it or for it?
I'm going to argue for it. I completely agree. I think even if, I have no other choice in my house to pull for Carolina. So even if Carolina beats Duke tomorrow night at Cameron Indoor and wins the ACC tournament, and Carolina beat Tennessee at the Dean Dome earlier this year, I still think Tennessee deserves the 1 seed with the way they've closed out their season. And, even if they win 1 game in the SEC tournament, then lose, that's fine. That's just all they're doing is getting rest and getting ready for the big tournament. I think they deserve the number 1 seed. I can't argue against that.
All right, Frank. Frank, can you argue for it or against it? Tennessee, if they beat Kentucky tomorrow and get a win in the SEC tournament in Nashville, at least 1 win, are they a number 1 seed? Are they locking it down? I think Frank is frozen in time.
He is. So the argument against it. So let's say Carolina does win. So Carolina goes to Cameron Indoor and wins the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
And they've beaten Tennessee earlier in the season. So yes, there is an argument that Carolina would deserve the number 1 seed. But I think that Tennessee, all said and done, deserves the number 1 seed if they beat Kentucky tomorrow and win 1 game in the SEC tournament.
Nobody, and Frank, we lost you there for a second, but I don't think anybody's been more dead on in assessing what Alabama basketball is under Nate Oates. They're a system. It's a process that he runs, and if he gets taken out of that comfort zone, and the team does, he's not going to beat you with X's and O's. Frank, Tennessee, number 1 seed if they beat Kentucky tomorrow and get at least 1 win in Nashville?
Yeah, absolutely,
okay.
Especially after this last 4-game run. They win a game. I mean, I think they're going to be in the finals in the SEC tournament. I think they're the team to beat. And that's not to say that somebody can't come up and beat them. I think Auburn, I think Kentucky, again, South Carolina, they all have shots in the SEC tournament. But I think winning these last 4 games, they're going to go win at least a couple of games in the SEC tournament. That's enough for a number 1 seed. I don't think you can keep it from them based on the body of the work.
Yeah, because the gauntlet of, again, Auburn in Knoxville, Alabama in Tuscaloosa, playing at Missouri. And Missouri, South Carolina. South Carolina is a good team. And Dave, not saying that Alabama's not good, but it's the same thing every year. They've been scoring over 100 a number of times, but now they're giving up over 100. They don't play defense. Not that they're the only team like that.
They don't play good defense, and to your point earlier with Nate Oates, it's a system, and you take them out of the system, and they just don't know what to do. I mean, they look completely outmatched in Gainesville earlier this week, and the better team won. I think Alabama will. Well, I don't know about tomorrow. I mean, Arkansas looked dadgum good against Kentucky. And Arkansas has got a lot of athleticism, as they do every year, and they've got a really good game coach. And game coaches beat system coaches, in March. So Arkansas may win tomorrow. But I think in Arkansas is a team that can make a run in the SEC tournament. I mean, clearly they have to win the SEC tournament to go anywhere after that. But I see in Arkansas or in LSU making a little bit of a run in the SEC tournament. I think this is the most fascinating SEC tournament we've ever seen. I mean, I just can't wait for next week. Wish I could be joining you guys in Nashville. Who knows? I might show up.
Well, and you know what? And it's a lot like SEC football, the intensity for it. Throw real quick to Brendan. Florida in the mix now. They're looking for, what's the dreaded C that everybody talks about? A 7-8? Is that what it is?
Oh, in the big dance or the SEC tournament?
Big dance.
5-12.
5-12. Yeah.
The 12 has I think a higher winning percentage against the 5.
It's like the bad custody in a divorce. You don't want the fire swallow.
That's right. Well,
get the 5-2-2.
As we all know.
Yeah. No, look, what happened in I'm trying to think, the number one seed when we had a number one seed lose. And who was it that beat them? It wasn't Baltimore. University of Maryland.
It's happened twice. Yeah. So the year before UVA won on the double dribble, they lost to UMBC, Maryland. Yeah, and then last year, as Franz calls them, Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round.
Yeah, Fairleigh. It reminds me of like Emily Dickinson College and Animal House, where Fawn Leibowitz was killed in a kiln explosion. Frank knew her well. Could you get some dates for my friends?
Yes, for my friends.
Yes.
I love that Boone drove. Boone would have blown about a .23.
Yeah. Well, or Flounder was combat ineffective. Right, Duffy. Well, top of the morning to you here from Bim Bam here, drinking a little Irish coffee. What are you drinking down there in Cabo? We thought a minute ago the federales had come in the room and just taken you away. And nothing like a night in a Mexican jail. I don't recommend
Frank, I feel like you need a little sunscreen. You're looking a little, peaked.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to get out. I'm just looking out for you, man.
He's got some sun.
Hey, we did pass a federale roadblock going to dinner last night. I was kind of making sure that, we didn't brush up against anybody strange.
$100.
Or got any residue on us.
Right, exactly. We just take that 100, take that C note with you, baby. You'll be fine.
Hey, we got pulled over out in the jungle one time in the Yucatan Peninsula. There were three of us, and
this is a bad joke.
We'd have a few cocktails, and the guy comes up and
in the jungle.
I speak Spanish, so I spoke to him. Like, how much is the ticket? And he just looked at us and goes, and just made up a figure. It's translated to $22, and we gave him a 20 and a 10 and said, "Thank you, sir." And he goes, "Gracias, señor." I mean, you don't want to be in a Mexican jail. You've seen, or a Turkish prison, by the way.
I just want to see I want to see your Spanish translated into English. I want to see what that looks like.
¿Cuántos años hace que vive en los Estados Unidos, señor?
I can meet you.
That happened once to us in Meridian, Mississippi, on the way to an LSU Alabama game in Tuscaloosa. So we need translators.
You do.
Road trips in the SEC. If you're an SEC fan, you've been on some back road in the middle of nowhere and somewhere in the middle of the fall, and you're lost, and
Hey, some of the best ones. Some of the best are coming back from, say, Athens to Nashville at 3 a.m, and you just can't get over the hump at Mont Eagle there around Chattanooga. You stay at the old Scottish Inn.
Oh, Mont Eagle.
You go back to Mont Eagle. You go back up to the office about 3:30 in the morning. And go, "Sir, the sheets are sticky and the floor is filthy and there's cigarette butts everywhere." And he goes,
"Oh, he's like,
that's
so it's
the only
been
room I have."
Yeah.
You're like, "Okay, I'll sleep in my car. Thank you."
I mean, we come off the mountain. If you're coming from Nashville to Chattanooga and you're going south on, I guess, 24, it's technically west, I guess, but you come off the mountain there. And you think you're now in civilization, and you pull off. Yeah. You were not. You were absolutely not in civilization. It gets worse until right before Chattanooga.
Well, and then you go up to Sewanee up on the mountain. That's nice. That's another world, is Sewanee up there, man. And Sewanee's right. That's their motto. All right, let's start with this one, Frank. This SEC basketball race. We talk about how good this conference is. But we know what happens in March. You start playing these guard-centric teams, and I'm just drawn to watch at night Big East basketball. We grew up with it. Remember Big Mondays? Sure. We were supposed to have been studying in college, but we're watching Syracuse. Jim Boeheim, who coached there for 74 years. But I love watching them play. Who's better in the SEC than UConn? Who has better guard play than UConn or Marquette or Creighton or Seton Hall?
Well, and don't forget, the guard play is kind of like the landmines in the old Stratego game, right? I mean, you didn't know when you were going to run across one of them. I think of John Brady's, my good buddy who's always on with us, Rob. His 2016, we went to the Final Four along with Florida, 2 SEC representatives, and we had a great team that year. Big Baby, Tyrus Thomas. and we wound up running into UCLA with this incredible guard play. At any point in time, guards can ruin your day, man. If they're having a good game, you might have the better team, but you're getting bounced. So yeah, there's always that situation out there.
Well, you got to like Florida, right? I mean,
yeah,
Florida's
absolutely.
Guard play is Zion pulling is the real deal.
Yep, yeah, no doubt. I mean, that can carry you for a game or two. Can't carry you for 6 games, but it can certainly win a game or two if you're in a tight spot when you're not shooting well. Your other team is not shooting well. You get some guard play that they can drive and dish, or they can hit from behind the 3-point line. You can win a game you shouldn't have won.
Well, Dave, I'll throw this one at you. The comparisons in football and basketball, Frank is onto something. You can be really good at running the ball, but you still got to be able to throw the ball, especially if you get behind on the road in the SEC or in any college game. Guard plays great. Why is it so damn hard to find a Zion pulling? And granted, this starting 5 for Florida, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, none of them started their careers in Alachua County. They're at Gainesville. They all are transfer portal guys. And Todd Golden, they've got a fantastic coach. I mean, he came from University of San Francisco, and he's got the Gators. You don't want to play him in the O-Dome right now. That's a tough place. It's underrated. It's old, but it's underrated, and I don't know if they're going to tear it down or what.
I mean, I think that's the perfect template, Florida. And what you do is when you're looking for a coach, is you find the coach who's at San Francisco or Santa Clara, these coaches from the West Coast Conference that have to play Gonzaga every year. St. Mary's, Randy Bennett would be a great hire because Gonzaga is the behemoth. They have all these big guys, and the only way you're going to be able to beat or compete against Gonzaga in that conference is with great guard play. And that's what Florida has now. I think Florida made a perfect selection for their head coach, and I'm excited for Brendan and Buddy. And I think Florida can make a run this year in the tournament. If not this year, then certainly next year. There you go.
Right over left, baby. Right over left. Come on. Come on. Right over left.
By the way. I don't understand what the deal is with people horns down. What about when people beat Florida, they do this, or when Auburn beats Alabama, they do reverse rammer jammer. That's fun. You know what? Get over yourself, you oversensitive babies. I mean, you know what? If you can't handle the heat, don't go to the beach. Kitchen. No, don't go to the beach.
Well, I didn't want to hurt Frank's feelings since he looks like he's struggling right now.
Yes, he's struggling.
Really.
Pacific
you want me to call the
there?
front desk? I'll call the front desk. Hi, this is Mr. Duffy's producer. He needs a gallon of ice water and a cold compress and some SPF 50. Thanks. Send it to the penthouse.
The spot up there. That has been done today.
And I love the fact that I love the fact that the Big Ten women's tournament is going to outdraw the Big Ten men's tournament. I think that's really cool. I'll be watching some Caitlin and Heather and Gabby and Kate and who's the other girl? I forget, but Molly. I think Molly got injured last week, but I'll be watching some Iowa women's basketball this weekend.
Yeah, let me say something. I love this guy, Dr. David Arnoff. I think he lives in Panama City. Got to go to work. He goes, this sportscast will be ringing through the hospital hallways as I make my rounds.
He's a hard-working man right there.
When I meet Dr. Arnoff, I'm giving him a steamer pack of crystals and a 30 rack of hams. And seriously, I love people like that. Thank you so much to all the people watching and listening.
$100 gift certificate at the Floribama.
Yes.
There you go.
Hey, my man MJ, Michael Jordan, is going down to Point Clear. He'll be at the Floribama this weekend at the Mississippi Bankers Convention down there. What a fun place to be. Like I say, Frank, they never have these sales conferences or these sales meetings in places like Olathe, Kansas, or Fargo, North Dakota, or,
Gulf Life, baby, Gulf Life.
Yeah. Hey, Frank, are you on Pacific Coast time right now?
I'm actually not. This is actually mountain time out here. That's
okay.
Wow.
I thought it was 3 hours, but it was only 2 hours. Of course, it took me 4 days to figure that out, but I got it.
But no, you took
vacation, man. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Did you take the
No
bus
time.
from Atlanta to Cabo San Lucas, the
Yeah.
Greyhound?
Greyhound.
No, I thought about bringing Bengal 1, but I was afraid to go across
No.
the border with it. Because hey, look, I don't know what they could get me for all the bourbon that's probably stashed underneath that thing for all my LSU tailgates. So I don't want to be caught for bootleg in Mexico.
Hey, again, you don't want to end up in Mexican jail. I don't recommend it
No,
for anybody.
absolutely not.
All right. Well, look, we can't help but talk too about some football in the SEC. Spring practice is underway. And we have Rodney Orr, and I got his new book. Pull it up there. It's awesome. It's called Bigger Than Bama. And Rodney has covered Alabama for close to 30 years, Tider Insider. Dave, are you a subscriber to Tider Insider?
I am not, and shame on me for not being so.
Well, it's only $48 a year. It's only $48 a year. But if Mildred, can you bring me my book, please? Paul, I've been watching Rodney for a long time.
48, the number worn by the great Robin Carey for Alabama back in the 70s.
We need to have a Dave Tompkins trivia day.
Yeah, we're going to do it right now.
You guys, I'll be the host, and we'll do a trivia off, and the winner gets like a Florida Gator T-shirt.
Right.
Well, I'm going to throw something at Frank, and then back and forth with all of y'all. Okay, when we talk about SEC football, we've loaned out the national championship. It's on a rental for a year to the Big Ten in Michigan. Okay, it cost them their coach. That he's gone. Ryan Day threw a hissy fit, Frank, and Ohio State. Now Ohio State will be right back where they were before, with really nobody to compete against in the Big Ten. Right or wrong? Oh, the Federales got him again.
Okay,
I just like that it always ends on a really good, positive screen for him.
Yeah, it does.
At least he's not like this. All right.
Frank, you there? Frank.
All right. Frank will be back with us.
He's trying. God bless him.
I'm Howard Sprague asking that question to Dave Tompkins.
Howard Sprague. I'll be Floyd, the barber, answering the question. Ryan Day is yet to win a big game.
Yeah.
And so he got all he wanted out of the transfer portal. He got all he wanted with Harbaugh leaving. He's had a great recruiting year, so all credit for that. But let's see him win a big game. And so that's all I got to say there. I agree with you, Rob. It's on loan for 1 year, and then it comes back home next year.
Yeah, and Mildred's going to hand me Bigger Than Bama right here. It's underneath the Farmer's Almanac that I bought at Tractor Supply yesterday. But this is really a great book, folks. And I got my copy, and Rodney was very kind to personalize it. But it's about his life, his personal life, and things that have gone on. And it's a story that will resonate with people. And Rodney's on with us every Tuesday, the May Veterinary Clinic Report. Really, really big, and it's a book that's real, and I recommend that you buy a copy of it. I don't care who you're a fan of. We're building this SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU, and we take contributions from all of our members, covering all 16 schools. Frank, a little bit of trivia here. Greatest voice in the history of LSU Tiger athletics. Give me your
voice
pick.
of John Ferguson.
I love it.
The mist
John
is
Ferguson.
coming in across the river here in Tiger Stadium. No, John Ferguson was the voice that I grew up with as an LSU fan. Actually, I was a Tulane fan, but I was a fan of both teams. But that's that voice that you remember, that booming voice. Yeah. Look, I like Hawthorne and I like Chris Blair. Chris Blair's a buddy of ours with Coach Brady. But John Ferguson, for those of us that are in our 50s and 60s, he's the voice of LSU. In fact, I even go back as far as J.C. Politz, who was the one that did the call of Billy Cannon's Halloween run against Ole Miss, in '59. So
Heisman year.
Yeah, we've had some great voices. By the way, I think Rodney's going to have one hell of a great spring, because can you imagine a more interesting thing going on right now than spring football in Tuscaloosa? Following Nick Saban's absence. I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of those meeting rooms and just to watch the jockeying of positions and just the holding of the breath that must be going on in Tuscaloosa right now. It must be, must watch I would love Hard Knocks to be in Tuscaloosa for the next month. It'd be fascinating to watch what's going on now post Saban.
Well, that's a good point, but they showed Saban and Kalen DeBoer together along with all the other rock stars of the moment in Tuscaloosa for that Tennessee game the other day. He won't know where he is until he loses his first game. And he's going to realize that, you got a bunch of people out in Seattle that go to the game. If you lose, they're probably over it by the time they get back out to their truck in the parking lot.
Sure.
It ain't that way down here in the South. And I think somebody made a good point, Dave Tompkins. George, I like this guy. This is a good point. Going to laugh my arse off every time somebody flies 3,000 or 4,000 miles round trip to play a dumbass football game, and they tell the rest of us to stay in our house because of climate change.
Al Gore must be a football fan.
Is he in Northern California right now?
Is that the same John Ferguson whose basketball partner was Joe Dean?
Yeah, absolutely, sure was. And Joe Dean, of course, another great voice. It's string music in Thompson Bowling Arena.
String music downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, go.
By the way, of course,
we need an adult.
He was
on
our
the show.
AD for a while, and I'll never forget being in Thompson Bowling Arena.
Bring Doug on in.
When LSU wound up being in the second round against Georgia Tech, Lethal Weapon 3, when we had Shaq, Stanley Roberts, Chris Jackson. And I remember looking down at Joe Dean, who was on the first row. Me and my buddy were about 3 rows up, asking him, hey, is Chris Jackson going or is he staying? And he turned around and he looked at me and did one of these. Chris Jackson announced his retirement, is leaving LSU that night. So, no, there's a lot of characters that have been in around LSU sports. Those are 2 of them. John Ferguson, certainly one of them in the voice.
Well, I'm forgetting. So a little trivia brain fart here. So Lethal Weapon 3 was Kenny Anderson, Dennis Scott, and I'm forgetting the third guy.
Oliver.
It was Howard Sprague. I mean, Doug Dean. Doug, jump in here with us, right? Doug was in a meeting this morning, had to join us a little bit late, but Doug Dean down in the Magic City. And by the way, Doug, I watch all the Birmingham stations at the house. We got it streaming WVTM, WBRC, and ABC 33 and 40. So I'm kind of aware of what's going on in Birmingham. And I see where Eli Gold is going to be the new voice of Jacksonville State, or help with them, as well as the Nashville Cats in arena football. But Birmingham news, let's just say this, the station's 10 times better than what I see in Memphis. Maybe there's just not as much bad stuff to talk about. I don't know.
Was that a question?
Just a statement.
Herb Lynch's.
Sorry, I'm a little late joining you guys. You were no worse for the content, because that allowed, as as a senator from Birmingham, I yield my 15 minutes to Frank Duffy, my paisan in Cabo. Is that where you are?
Cabo San Lucas. See.
Ooh, I love that place. Hey, Frank, only advice I will give you, I went for a ill-advised 3-mile run through downtown Cabo when we were there a few years ago. That is not a good idea.
It was a little sketchy the first night. Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a little sketchy.
But I wasn't kidnapped and had one of my kidneys taken out surgically. So,
hey, I'm an LSU guy. They wouldn't take my kidneys or my liver.
The mileage is too high. I can attest to that.
That's right.
Woodford Reserve on game day. So, guys, here's what's kind of made it through the fog of March, with March Madness fast upon us. Looking forward to, what'd you call it, Separation Saturday tomorrow. Not really. Tennessee's already wrapped this thing up. But there's some other it's amazing, the log jam in second place in the SEC, which is a testament to how damn tough it is. But what's on my mind a little, I'm trying to develop, I'm trying to get a really mathematician friend of mine who's very elite at high-level math and also is fascinated with the bracketology. But one of the things I'm looking at in the first and second rounds, not that this is original, but it intrigues me, and that is I would say, as we know from the history and stats, you're going to get a heavy dose of favorites winning round one, right? For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
The seeding. But when you look at what I want to look at is what I'll call teams that are late bloomers. For different reasons, there's some teams that have fantastic rosters, elite level talent, maybe at least Sweet 16 caliber talent and coaching, but they really get off to a slow start. But you go look at, have they gotten hot lately? And that's a team like, if you're Florida, Auburn, Florida, would you say Florida's in, or they're still bubble?
They're in.
They're in. I would think
they're in.
That big Alabama win didn't hurt them. But
4 quad 1 wins. Yeah.
Okay, so regardless, pick your team. Kentucky. The round one, our brain is going to tell us no problem, easy win. But I want to find those games that you got a big problem. Even let's say an Auburn. If you're unlucky and you get a team that, because they lost a lot early season, they're not going to get a good seeding, but they eke their way in off the bubble. Then they're set. But they've been winning a lot of games the last 10 or 15 outings. Then that's a team you really don't want to play. And Auburn 2019 was kind of an example of that. They were lucky to make the tournament. Once they got hot late, boy, you didn't want to play them. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I want to correlate that mathematically.
Yeah, Auburn 2019, Auburn was the perfect example. Great guard play, great game coach in Bruce Pearl.
Yeah,
made a late run, played well in the SEC tournament, and then got into the big dance. And I think they beat Kentucky in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four.
Yeah,
and they should have won the national championship that year. They got screwed.
And there's other great examples. I don't know. I'm not going to make a fool of myself and try to name who those are this year, but I'm not talking about 8 seed or better. I'm talking about those like 9 through 15. The 16 seeds usually are going to have a big problem, but there's been 1 or 2 exceptions of that recently. But here's the other pet peeve and one of the fun things we do on the show is talk about, like, for example, in football season, we ranted on and on, especially Dave, about situational awareness. Why don't these players learn to understand the damn moment in big games? And the pet peeve of mine, you see it on every team, is the ill-advised dunk attempt. And it hits the rim and bounds out. And I've seen Auburn do some of that lately. I hope Bruce Pearl gets those guys. Once we're playing tough competition in Nashville and then in March Madness, you don't have to win the highlight reel, for God's sake. If it's a tight game, unless we're up by 15 plus, get the ball in the damn basket. It doesn't have to be a tomahawk dunk. Because if it rims out 5 yards, then you just gave the opponent a run out that they're highly likely to score on.
Yeah, I agree. And if you shoot a lot of 3-pointers, you've got to be aggressive in getting the rebounds. And when Auburn went on that great run in 2019, remember they lost on the road in Rupp Arena by like 27 and then reeled off 12 straight wins. And they played Duke earlier in the year in Hawaii in that tournament, played a good close game there. Then they beat Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky. They played all the blue bloods of college basketball, and they beat 3 of them in the tournament. That's a memorable season. And then we had Helen Keller's twin brother as the referee in that game. But again, going back, if Auburn, as Bruce Pearl said, if they would have hit in the first 5 minutes of the second half anything, that game's not close. And I listened to John Thompson on the radio at the end of that game watching it. John Thompson said, you don't make that call on Samir Dowdy that you do on this kind of a stage, but they did. And it was just frustrating. But, Dave and Doug is so right. I sound like Carl Stevens, you're so right.
You're so right, Carl.
Yeah, Shug would say that. And I love these comments coming in here, man. This is awesome. Florida fans want to beat Miami next year, starting off the schedule. I mean, does anybody looking at it's not way too early. It's never too early to talk college football. Florida's schedule next year, it's a murderer's row just outside of the conference, not to mention the regular conference schedule. Billy Napier, year 3, Dave, and we're bouncing around because I'm drinking some good Baileys and I'm excited.
Friday.
Yeah, it's Savant Friday. But Florida, Billy Napier, what do you think happens with him? I mean, do they give him more time?
Year. I think this is the year. If I hope this doesn't happen. I'm Brendan somewhere. But if he gets off to a slow start, he might get fired midseason. But this is their put up or shut up year, and they do have a gauntlet of a schedule. So yeah, if he's nervous right now, he should be. Yeah. So, and then back to Doug's question, I think the sleeper teams this year, Creighton's going to get a high seed, but I think watching Creighton, their coach McDermott, they can make a deep run, possibly all the way to the Final Four. Look out for TCU. They've got a lot of talent. They play in the Big 12. They've got a really good game coach. Look out for St. Mary's. They won the West Coast Conference. Randy Bennett is a tremendous coach. They just shut teams down. And look out for Texas Tech. Those are
Dave. I love Dave's knowledge. It goes below the surface of the water into granular detail. What will St. Mary's possibly be seeded? Would you guess?
I think they're going to be probably a 7. Probably a 7 seed or an 8 seed. So let's just say they're an 8 seed, and they get in the same regional as Purdue. Yeah, I'm picking St. Mary's in the second round over Purdue.
Rob, let me tell you how crazy I am certifiably. When I look at the probable, we got to keep an eye on Tennessee. If they have a big run in Nashville, Tennessee's playing for a 1 seed now, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, in a sense, it'll be criminal if they do well, win a couple or 3 games, much less win the tourney. Then how do you keep an SEC team from having a 1 seed? But regardless, if I look at who's likely to be the top, all the 1 seeds, I would want my Auburn Tigers to be in the same region as Purdue. Am I crazy? I think they
Absolutely.
I think you can coach that son of a gun and limit what the big guy can do. And boy, is he big! But I think I'd rather face them certainly than UConn.
You don't want UConn. You don't want to be in UConn's regional, and you don't want to be in Houston's regional. I think those are the 2 really dominant teams right now. Kelvin Sampson doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's gotten in trouble a couple times and stuff, but he doesn't get the credit he deserves as a coach. He is just a phenomenal coach. He's one of those rare coaches who's both a systems coach and a game coach. So I think Houston's going to make the Final Four this year. They're the one team I think that can beat UConn.
And here's from the SEC. Here's the team. If they can sneak off, I guess their bubble now, according to Lenardi. If Mississippi State can get in, I wouldn't want to play them early. Would you guys?
No. They're tough. They're athletic. They play good defense. They're going to be if they get in, and they've got some more work to do. They're going to have to win some games in the not lose tomorrow. Who are they playing tomorrow? South Carolina. They're hosting South Carolina. They need to win that game, and they need to win a couple games in the tournament to secure a bid. And if they do, you don't want to face them in the first or second round.
And their problem, they're 19-11. Their problem is they're 8-9 in the conference, which is a couple of games that got away from them that are unfortunate. But yeah, I'd like to see State sneak in the tournament. It sort of hurts that we're right now. What are we, 7 teams in, and we need to get somebody off the bubble to get 8.
LSU, Frank. I think is it. Frank's back in. The federales took him out for interrogation. But he's Frank. Are you back with us? There he is.
I am back. Yeah, I thought LSU had a shot until we wet the bed against Arkansas. You can't give up 90 some odd points against Arkansas. Our defense just didn't show up. So I think the obvious choice, if we do sneak another one in, it's going to be Mississippi State, depending on how they do this, on Saturday tomorrow.
What about Texas A&M?
No, A&M. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No. Just, what about Texas A&M? Anybody? They keep talking about them. They're losing. I don't see it. I love Buzz Williams, but I don't see it this year.
No, I'm not in.
On Arkansas, I'm thinking back, and I'm going to do my little savant here. I'm thinking back to the 2011 season. when UConn had to win every game. They had no buys in the Big East tournament. So they had to win 5 straight games in the Big East tournament to win the tournament. Kemba Walker was their great guard, and they weren't even in the NIT before. They were like 14-14 coming in the Big East tournament, win all 5 games, and then get into the big dance, become a 3 seed, and then end up going all the way. Only time it's ever happened in history. There's a slight chance that could be repeated this year with Arkansas. But just watching Arkansas the last couple games, I mean, they're looking. Arkansas started the year ranked in the top 10. Musselman's a tremendous coach. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's just a little chance that they can repeat what UConn did in 2011.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, Duffy, I've already got your coach's pregame speech in this situation in Nashville. You got to play tomorrow, but it won't matter. You know what this means, boys? We just got to win the whole damn thing in Nashville.
Yeah.
No, I'm Roll Tide forever. I've just become terminally frustrated with the basketball team. So come March Madness, I'll be pulling for them. But I'm always pulling for Auburn, even though because I just love Bruce Pearl so much.
Well, one thing about doing this show, SEC Sideline Sports Network and SECU, we want SEC schools. I pull for all of them. I mean, I'm an Auburn grad, but I pull for all of them. But I'm myopically, going to pull for Auburn. Think about this. These Big East schools and St. Mary's and Gonzaga, they can put all the NIL money they have into about 13 players and maybe a few other sports. They don't have to. I mean, Freddie Weeby, by the way, we're going to get him on the show. He is the new brains behind the Florida Victorious, their NIL collective. I watch him a lot on the Buddy Martin show, which is on, like weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern. Check it out live on YouTube. It's got Freddie Weeby's the one who put Spurrier's restaurant together. He did all the research. He sought Steve Spurrier out. He is putting together Florida Victorious. Just like I said, the Red Elephant Club is now in the game. 3 weeks ago, they said, okay, we got to play now. I don't think they felt with Nick Saban there, they kind of had a little bit of a leg up. They're going, okay, we don't want to lose our spot. Watch out. Freddie Weeby's going to be on this show one day next week. When you hear this guy talk, it's like listening to, great hedge fund managers and great commodities guys like Jimmy Rogers from Demopolis, Alabama, who rode a motorcycle all over the world, wore the bow tie. Used to see him on CNBC all the time. Watch out. Freddie Weeby is very smart. I would say it was like when Sam Phillips started producing Elvis's stuff at Sun Studios in Memphis. I'm just saying. Doug Dean, jump in here and tell me this. In your opinion, in the SEC, who has the best opportunity to leapfrog multiple schools and get into the hunt for Atlanta next year in the football championship race?
Oh, we're back to football? Sure.
We're bouncing
probably a little more qualified on that in that sport. I'm going to disqualify myself from saying I don't really think it'll be Auburn. I think Hugh Freeze has got some weaknesses on mainly the defensive side of the ball. We got to see what the QB position. The word is that Peyton Thorne is rarely throwing an incompletion in spring ball, but that spring, don't give it any credence. Trust me on that. Let's see a few real games. It can't be Alabama or Georgia. So somebody coming from out of the pack. I'm a little worried about Duff's LSU team only because they're about to put a quarterback very high in the draft. If the draft evaluators have any common sense at all. And I said, Duff, I would draft Jaden Daniels. That's just me. My prediction is Caleb Williams will not live up to billing if he goes first. But, the next NFL team I coach will be my first. But, gosh, I'm running out of teams that excite me, to be honest. Maybe Tennessee rises up again. Maybe what about Texas Longhorns? Don't forget, it's the new SEC. I'm gonna go Texas. Watch out for the Texas Longhorns because I have a lot of respect for Sarkisian, and they're extremely talented on the offensive side of the ball. Sark knows what to do. I need to study their defense a little better, but that would be a team to keep an eye on.
What about Buck Wade says on comments here from Live Oak, Florida, Mizzou? Nobody's talking much about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Some of these teams like Mizzou, there's some part of my brain that's probably defective, candidly, that it's defective, but I can't get it out of my head that I tend to think it's unfair to Mizzou, but I tend to think of them as a one and done. I mean, a one-hit wonder is the word I'm after. That they I don't think of them as stringing together multiple really incredible seasons. So, but they get a chance to prove me an idiot on that, and it wouldn't be the most shocking thing if they did.
Well, back when we were kids, the one conference that was equal, I think, of the SEC was the Big Eight. And look, now we have 3 teams from the Big Eight. And no, Texas from the Southwest. My bad. Yeah. We have Texas and Arkansas from the Southwest, and then Missouri and Oklahoma from the Big Eight.
Well, interestingly, they used to call it Oklahoma and the Seven Dwarves before Bob Devaney came back from Wyoming in 1962, which, by the way, is the last season that they didn't have a sellout for every home football game in Lincoln, Nebraska, was 1961. But Nebraska still sells out every game. Speaking of that, watch Matt Rule. He's going to do what he did at Baylor in the Big Ten. That conference is ripe for someone to come up. And Dave, Doug, I'm going to throw this at Doug real quick, bounce it back. Cam Coleman in the spring. He's the highest rated offensive recruit Auburn's ever signed. The highest player they ever signed was Byron Cowart. That didn't work out well, but Cam Coleman, I think Hugh Freeze is having to bite his tongue with the effusive praise directed his way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The thing I'm hearing about Cam Coleman, it's so unfair to put the burden on a true freshman because what he's going to find, man, he's so used to having easy separation in high school, even going up against great teams like Thompson. But what he's going to find quickly, not just in the SEC, but the first few games is, golly, these DBs are fast.
Yes.
It's hard. They're physical and they're knocking me off of my route. It's that skill of being able to run your routes and get bumped around and adjust. That it'll take him a few games, but what's coming out of spring camp in Lee County is not just when he goes out in a route to catch a ball, but the kid, boy, they big. He doesn't weigh a lot as a receiver, but a legitimate 6'3", 6'3.5", and just runs like a gazelle. And then also arrived early for spring. Is the fastest, I'm told, the fastest straight line speed of those 4 receiver signees. So I know Hugh Freeze probably is licking his chops at that he might finally have receivers that can blow the top off of defense once they get acclimated.
Frank Duffy, LSU, your quarterback is going to be 1, 2, or 3 in the draft. Looks like the Patriots might get him. But I like what Doug is saying. You lose Malik Neighbors. You lose 2 receivers that are going to be first round, top 10, top 15 picks. But at LSU, it's kind of next man up. You grow them down there. And in the 2 years that Brian Kelly's been there, he's won 10 games 2 years in a row. But the defense with Matt House was abysmal. It was historically bad. Talk about how they're fixing or trying to fix that problem.
Well, they are bringing Perkins back into the middle, which was a disaster to begin the year. But I think they're trying to get him. They're even thinking about doing a 3-4 from what I've heard, and have him be the off middle linebacker. So basically 2 middle linebackers. Go figure. But again, not on that tight end, because I think that's where he just got eaten up. Trying to play a traditional middle linebacker was not his forte. And that's how we got behind. And I think it's also why we lost to Florida State. I think that was a big contributing factor to it. He was out of sorts. He was not the game wrecker that he was. Yeah. But for LSU to be successful, we've got to play defense. I mean, that, like you said, it was abysmally bad. It was historically bad. And frankly, it It ruined a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and
Correct.
ruined probably our best statistical team ever, and that's including the 2019 team. So you got to play on both sides of the ball, and especially in the SEC, you're not going to win championships unless you're playing defensive football, and that's what LSU's got to get back to. And look, I like Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's a good quarterback. He's been in the system for years. I mean, he has to be able to step up and have these 2 next seasons. I think he's in perfect position. I think he's a good pro-style quarterback. And, he's deceptively quick, actually. He's not, not Jaden Daniels quick, but he can certainly avoid the rush. So, but he's certainly got a more pro-style, passing attack, and he's got a cannon for an arm. The problem is with Nussmeier is, sometimes he's been said you got $1 million arm and a 10-cent head. He's got to protect the football. That's going to be the most important thing for him. But look, we always have athletes at wide receiver, tight end, at running back. He just has to protect the ball. But we got to play on defense. If we don't play on defense, we're going to have a lopsided team just like we had this past year.
Yeah, you can't boat race everybody. Yeah.
That reminds me of bad news. There are years in the last few years in Auburn which is the team I know the most about, but and there's other examples that are similar that people will say, "Oh, we bring back a really veteran offensive line." I said, "You want me to be excited about that?" And we couldn't block anybody a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So the good news is Nussmeier's been there 4 years. The bad news, he's been there 4 years and wasn't good enough to start.
Yeah. Well, let me throw.
Well, I think he would have had the talent to start if Jaden Daniels didn't get. Our second Heisman quarterback dropped out of the sky on us. You really have to question Ohio State and Arizona State's personnel assessments. But we thank them for those 2 Heismans. But I think Garrett would have been good enough to start. So I think he's going to play good ball. I really do. I like his chances. Again, I know it was a meaningless bowl game in Tampa that I witnessed, but he really played well in Tampa. So I'll take my chances at quarterback. Quarterback and offense is not where we're going to have problems. We got to get back to LSU style football on defense. And if we can do that, then I think we can make a run in the SEC West. You were asking about who makes a surprise move. This might be the year that Ole Miss finds its way to Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get to that.
Finally, Ole Miss's.
Yeah, hang on to that thought. Dave Tompkins, I know you got a role. Dave, awesome stuff. We'll be doing this again next week. Thank you so much. Awesome. Everybody else, stay on here. Doug
Dean, guys. So have a great weekend.
You do too. Appreciate it. Doug and Frank, that's exactly where I was going next. We were in Oxford last Thursday and Friday. I follow all these SEC schools. I do the best I can. I study every night. I feel like I'm in grad school. But it never feels like work. I like what you say. What they're doing, number 1 class in the portal, okay? It's sort of like, do you want to buy a house that's already finished, or do you want to start from scratch? Doug Dean, do you like that culture, what Lane Kiffin's doing? It's like either adapt to what is going on, or you're going to lose out.
Yeah, and, for your audience, your listeners or viewers, they would be absolutely in bounds to say, who is this Dean guy and why didn't he name Ole Miss instead of Texas? Because I want to be the provocateur on this show. And,
sure.
But if you study schedules, goodness, if Ole Miss can't make a really great run this year, especially with Saban gone and they don't have to play Alabama unless it's in a championship game in Atlanta. Well, yeah, because we don't have the divisions this coming season. But I still like Texas more. I think they've been knocking on the door. They were there, could have easily won a national championship this past season. And I think they're built to sustain success. I just have a hunch that Lane Kiffin, when he comes to SEC Media Days, which is in Dallas. Am I right, Rob?
Yeah, and Texas welcomes in the bottom right-hand corner of the SEC. It's going to be like.
Well, I just think, look at their football schedule this season. There's a lot to like about it, but I just have a feeling first of all, Georgia will get Ole Miss. Georgia would get anybody right now on track.
Yeah.
But there'll be somebody else that Ole Miss has no business regular season losing to that will find a way. And Ole Miss will have a tremendous year, and they may make the 12-team playoff. Good for them. If it's two losses, they should be deserving. I just have a feeling they will disappoint when they really shouldn't, looking at the schedule.
Well, along that line, let me throw this before we go to Frank. You think about Georgia's schedule. They open up August 31st at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta against Clemson. That'll be a neutral. That will be, because you know how close Clemson is, and they got a lot of fans there anyway. Then they've got to play at Texas. Georgia plays at Texas, at Alabama, and at Ole Miss. So Georgia, whereas people last year, the narrative going into the season was they don't have a tough schedule. Well, they ended up having a tough one in those last 4 games against Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, and then a better Georgia Tech team than most people thought. So, but Doug, also in your defense, you didn't mention Ole Miss because they're already being mentioned as one of the top teams coming in the next year, along with Georgia and Alabama and Texas. I mean, to be fair to you, I know you too well. You're too smart. And
it was I could have thrown them in. It would have been classier, but we're just trying to have different opinions on here. And so I guess what we're saying, Ole Miss is a blue blood now, right? Yeah, right.
Well, they're working on it.
Yeah, no, they're in great position. I'm sure Kiffin is licking his chops, but what he's going to have to overcome is when games like that Georgia game come along, which is in Oxford, he's got a great opportunity. But is he just going to overthink it and go on too many 4th and 3s, that kind of thing? And, I heard a fascinating interview with Eli Drinkwitz, who did a phenomenal job at Mizzou off the radar coming into the season last year. And I'm still wrapping my brain around what this means. But he said what's so different for coaches in the SEC this season is until 2024, you had to strategically think about who was in your division. And those games, because of the head-to-head and so on, those games could mean more. Maybe you put a little more planning and effort into that. And he said that's out the window. And now you're really thinking more about coaching your own team. You're thinking about yourself because every single SEC game is basically identical when the math comes around in late November.
Yeah.
It's almost like the NFL. It's not how you do it. It's you got to just rack up the wins. And look, it's going to be how the schedule falls. I mean, you're going to have your 3 common opponents, and it's going to be strange. LSU not playing Auburn next year. I mean, it's going to be a weird feel for the whole season. But and look, all you're wanting to do, I think the whole strategy for teams next year, you just want to make it to the dance. You just got to get into the dance. Let me get into the dance. Let me not lose more than 2 games. Hopefully my strength of schedule in the SEC will get me in. And I think you're going to be looking for people, that's what teams are going to be looking to do. I think it's going to be fascinating if the SEC can get 4, maybe 5 teams into the dance. I think that's really going to be the interesting thing on how the losses add up.
And Duffy, Florida comes to mind, but there are a couple or 3 SEC programs who play some stout out of non-conference opponents. And I think I'm right in saying the way it will all work, not including who's the top 2 teams in the SEC that play for the title in Atlanta, but especially when the selection committee sits down to pick the 12 teams, you cannot lose an out-of-conference game, in my opinion, unless you run the table in the SEC, and nobody's going to run the table, I don't think, in the SEC.
Well, you look at Alabama. They won the national championship in 2011 when they didn't win the SEC. They did it again in 2017 when they didn't win the SEC. So you don't have to go to Atlanta to win it all. But Ole Miss has never been to Atlanta. And Doug, you're right. The deal is some people cannot handle the burden of high expectations. And the fan base, the culture, there's so much that goes into it. And Lane Kiffin plays a lot of mind games with the media, with fans and everything. But,
there's
how
no
much
more
longer
excuses, Rob. There's no excuses for Ole Miss.
Yeah. Next year is here. Go Rebels. That's what the bumper stickers should say. Yeah.
You want to get to the adult table at Thanksgiving? You're at it. Now, what are you going to do?
I'm not remotely. I don't mean in any way. I'm excited to watch Ole Miss this year. I really am. I don't have any venom that whatsoever. I have admiration for Lane Kiffin. He brings so much entertainment value to what we like in the SEC. He's controversial. I think it's a good fit at Ole Miss. It brings a lot of spotlight to them. But Ole Miss this coming season, definitely more than a year ago, because Alabama and Georgia were all the talk. But all of a sudden, Ole Miss is the team with a big target on its back.
Yes.
Am I right, Doug?
Correct.
Yeah.
Almost,
They are.
And how do
like
they do
when
it? Do they like that? Do they embrace that and draw confidence out of it? Or does it
And
start
Doug,
to
it
weigh
reminds
on
me a little bit of when Hugh Freeze was there when they had the target on their back with the #1 recruiting class. It reminds me a lot of that. And so, no, you're right. I mean, there's no more excuses. Ole Miss, if you're going to make it to Atlanta, you got to do something this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like when I tell my Ole Miss friends, I say, listen, they always will say, Bobby, Auburn and Alabama, y'all are just like cannibals. You just eat your team if they lose a lot. I go, well, expectations are high. And now, we were going around campus last Thursday and Friday, Audrey and I were, and I said, when they get to the Grove this year, it's going to be a different conversation. It's going to take more liquor, more liquor, more beer after the losses, because the expectations are so high. When you get this close, you got to finish the job. And Doug, Frank, this in business. If you have a great quarter or a great year, you got to do it again and again and again. That's why in the stock market, people say, Rob, why is the stock selling off? The earnings were great. Buy at the wake, sell at the wedding. The earnings, the expectations of those earnings have been baked into the price.
Sure.
Don't wait. Let me tell you, don't wait for the Federal Reserve to say they're going to cut rates. Markets are discount mechanisms. Who they think's going to win this race or that race, that's why the stock market's up. They think something's going to happen. It's a discount mechanism. Looking into the season next year for both of y'all, and y'all are two very, very smart guys. You've got great football and business acumen. I think about the expectations. Texas coming in. We haven't even talked about Boomer Sooner and Oklahoma. Those people have won 7 titles. They're big.
But I'll tell you, you're going to see the difference between the two programs. I think with them coming into the SEC, that difference between Texas and Oklahoma is going to be even more pronounced. The trajectory for Texas and the trajectory for Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma beat Texas this year, which, again, it was an amazing game. I watched the whole game. But I think you're seeing Texas coming in. Texas is going to be the big brother coming into the SEC. There's no doubt about it. And you're going to feel it this first year.
Yeah. Well, already they're getting better interior defensive linemen, Doug B. Dean, at Texas and OU. They used to go only after edge rushers. And now the school that could potentially suffer a lot is Texas A&M, because now Texas can sell the SEC, Doug, and they've got a $42 billion endowment. Oklahoma's about $3 billion. I checked oil is at $79.67 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate crude, which means Brent C crude's probably about $84. It's always $5 more, which, by the way, for you people in Alabama and Atlanta, your gas is always more expensive for us out here in the Western Hemisphere because we're closer to Texas. I mean, so they do bring some value to the table, Doug.
They do. And, I don't know if you've ever measured, if you have any Boomer Sooner listeners.
I do.
Here. Yeah. And I like their I'm kind of pissed off at them because through no fault of their own that they knocked Auburn out of the 2004 BCS opportunity. But, that was you back then, the way the rules work, because, the NCAA, they're king makers, weren't they, Duff? They get to decide who they want to make king. And they coronated USC because, most people felt like Oklahoma was going to have trouble when they faced the Trojans. But it was nobody's fault. There's that 2 blue bloods that had not lost all year. But I think the first year, the growing pains, and I'm in a wait and see mode on Brent Venables. He may prove to be a genius, but I don't have him up there with Sarkisian quite yet. And that's not a fair comparison because one's a defensive mind, one offensive. But if you look at Oklahoma's schedule, their schedule is the biggest problem this year. They get Tennessee. They go to Jordan. Frank, would you say Jordan-Hare Stadium is difficult to play in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For those who've had to do it every other year, yes.
Your Honor, he is leading the witness with that line of questioning.
No objection there, son.
That was easy.
And that's not enough. Oklahoma gets to go to Oxford. They get to go to Mizzou, and they get to
and Baton Rouge.
They get to host Alabama, and they go to LSU. So I see 4 losses. You hear me, Boomer Sooner? 4 losses, growing pains. And here's what the controversy I want to get on the table, a fallacy I want to attack violently. And I get it. We've all said, because it sounds like a good line of thinking, if you don't make the 12-team playoff, you have no reason to whine. Well, yes, you might. You might. If you're in the SEC, you might. Because I believe I'm right. The NCAA said, and the Power Fives that are making this decision about the 12-team playoff, that the SEC and Big Ten are automatically going to get 2 teams selected. Did I hear that right?
I don't know automatically if they're going to guarantee. I think it's the 5 highest rated conference champions and then 7 at-larges. I believe that's what it is.
All right. Well, I garbled it. Maybe the commentator was saying that if you look at what is likely in those 2 power conferences, their second best team is almost certainly going to have a hell of an argument to be selected. So,
especially this time because you're not having the other division. There have been some times at the SEC championship game that the other division brought in an opponent that might have already had 2 losses. Especially on the East, like when you had Missouri go a couple of times. But you're not going to have that this time. You're going to have the 2 best teams in Atlanta, and you got to think that the second-ranked team in the SEC is going to the playoffs de facto.
Yeah, and so do the math with me. 12 sounds like a lot of teams, and it is compared to 2 and then 4. But the other conferences, I guess we're at 5, automatically get. So if I'm right that there's 2 SEC, 2 Big Ten, you've only got 8 left. Then you had 3 more automatics. So where I'm going with the controversy is if you look at the power of the teams that are in the 16-team SEC, good God, the third best SEC team could get screwed this coming season.
Yeah.
Take a 3-loss Texas or a 3-loss LSU, and they just run out of spaces, run out of slots to award them. And if you look at how Vegas would run things and all of that stuff, we went through it a little bit last year with the controversy between Alabama and FSU, which probably wasn't really a controversy except theoretically. I look for somebody's going to be angry that the SEC, for all we bring to television and the power conferences, and if you look at the resumes of the teams we've got, that things are set up for the committee to be able to screw the third best SEC team or Big Ten team.
Yeah. We got a couple of minutes left before we wrap up. And I'm texting Tyler McComas out at KREF Radio. He does a 4-hour talk show Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. Nothing but Boomer Sooner and Oak State and all. And they are jacked up about coming to the SEC. In fact, they did an economic impact study. Yeah, it's going to be fun. They said that the city of Norman, the way the Big 12 is, on a typical weekend, they don't travel the opposing teams like SEC schools. It's about an $11 million impact on the city of Norman. They looked at Tuscaloosa, Fayetteville, and Lexington, KY. Little string music. The average impact of those 3 SEC schools on a home football game Saturday, $33.2 million. They are jacked up. They're drilling extra oil wells out there.
I'm reminded of the line that John McClane gave in the wonderful Christmas movie Die Hard. Welcome to the party, pal. Come on in. Good luck.
Yeah.
Enjoy those 4 road games.
Yeah. Their first road game, Doug, will be at Jordan-Hare Stadium, correct time is 6 p.m. In 30 minutes, it'll be kickoff. Doug, close us out with this great gospel hymn. And let me just say, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Thanks to all of our listeners and viewers, our great sponsors like Hewlett and Dunn, like the Boxing, Rumble, BoxingGym.com, the Vitamin Shop in Oxford and Olive Branch, Mississippi, Tom Martin's Body Shop. We are so blessed to have you. What does the great man say on the PA system before kickoff at Tiger Stadium? He says what?
Duffy.
Oh, no. The Federale's got him again. Frank, can
Oh,
you
you
hear
talking
me?
about for me?
Yeah. Frank,
It's
what does he say?
Saturday night in Death Valley. Damn, Bornay.
And
I
he
thought
says,
you were setting Doug up.
sorry about that, but no, he said something like, in 30 minutes, the sun will set in the western sky.
Yeah. In 30 minutes, the sun will find its home in the western sky, and it'll be Saturday night in Death Valley. That's my buddy Dan Bornay, man. He's awesome.
Yeah. By the way, I listened, Doug. I don't know if y'all watch the Buddy Martin show at night. That's a great show. There was talk about doing something to the swamp, which is one of the best home environments in all of sports. Architecturally, it's a marvel. You go down in the ground, it traps the noise and the heat and humidity. You know one thing, am I fair to say this? In college, we revel in the age of our stadiums, like the Roman Colosseum or the Pantheon, the oldest municipal building still in use in Rome. We revel in the age of our stadiums. In the NFL, we brag as fans about how new they are. Doug, you know, I mean,
the other way.
Yeah, I am weeping gently, Duff, that we will not have LSU on our schedule this year.
I am too.
It's just going to be something's going to just not feel right about it.
Yeah.
Look,
and by the way,
hey, Duff, you guys hold your end up. Auburn will try. Maybe we can meet in Atlanta.
Sounds good, brother.
But what could happen weird in an inside stadium in that series? The roof could fall in. I don't know. Okay. Hey, goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll be back Monday morning. Appreciate it. This is awesome getting y'all back together. We'll do it again Monday morning, 8 a.m. Central. Watch the Buddy Martin Show. Go to SEC Sideline Sports Network. Smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. SECU is coming to a station near you. Here we come. Thank you.
See you guys.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.